Hey all, boardgamerants here where you'll find everything sold to tabletop gaming and more. And I have got Hadrian's Wall for you today by Bobby Hill. We're going to dig into the game a little bit, and I'm going to tell you from a solo perspective what I think on the other side. Welcome to Hadrian's Wall. We're going to be trying to defend Hadrian's Wall at the end of 6 years, 6 rounds. There's the whole shebang right there. You got a stack of papers here that make up your player board, if you will, and another stack here. You just put them side by side. This is where you're going to take your actions, and as you take actions, you'll cross off little squares. And sometimes when you cross off a square, you're going to get some goodies for it, and you sort of work your way kind of left to right on most of these tracks. This track has to do with the wall that you're trying to build to protect yourself from getting attacked and losing points. And then you got some other stuff here that helps you get more workers and resources to do things with. Down here is where you're going to score your tally your final score and look at your total score at the end of the game. Over here has to do with turning your workers into certain types of, either trader, performers, priests, etc. There's 5 different tracks to work on here. And as you cross them off, again, left to right, you might get a blue worker for crossing this off and stuff. So I'll go over this here in a little bit more, but here's all your resources you'll have to work with. You got 4 different colored workers, and then resource, which is stone. I guess they just call it resource. El pencil. So you'll mark off your boardo. Up here you've got your only cardboard, really. I was going to keep track of the 6 rounds for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you'll know kind of when you're at the end of your game. And you have 12 cards to work with. You can use 2 of them each round. You got the fate deck here. This is going to determine your fate in a great many ways. And then up here, when you're playing solo, you just use a random, you can play up to 6 players. So you just use a different player's color of cards. It's going to give you more options as if you were playing multiplayer. And so you just got to have one of those handy. And you'll start your game quite simply. First, you're going to get all your stuff, all your workers and resources you have to work with. You're going to flip over a fate card, and you'll get the goodies. So in other words, I'd get 2 black workers. I'd get a blue and a purple and 2 yellow. And then 2 of these stone-looking resources. Then you actually draw 2 cards. And again, the 12 cards actually that you have are the same as any other player has. But each round, each year, you're going to be picking 1 to use as an end game scoring bonus. So you only use the top for 1. And then you'll ignore the top and kind of use the bottom stuff for the other card. So maybe I want to work on being a trainer. And so that's going to give me potential victory points, end game scoring goal there. And then you use the other card for, in this case, I'd get that resource or worker, and so I'll get 1 more black worker. I'll place him there. And then lastly, sometimes there's a section here where you can build up that'll give you more, maybe yellow workers, blue workers, allow you to mark stuff off on your board. So you got to pay attention to that as well. So you get another resource. So that's my starting workers and resources I have to work with. And lastly, when you're playing solo, you're going to flip over 2 cards here, which again, you're going to ignore the top portion, but you may be using this portion of the card or this middle section of the card. These have to do with actions that you can take on your player board, player paper, whatever you want to call it. So, and very generally here, what you're trying to do is build up your wall. So when you get attacked, you're gonna fend off the attack and not lose points, and hopefully score valor. But if you don't, you're going to get disdain, and disdain counts against you at the end of the game. You don't want that. So so what you do is, and then, well, I guess over here, as I was saying, you're going to build up your. This is where you get to be pretty unique in how you're going to play your game, because as you work your way up the trader's track, it'll unlock sort of this like colored area of actions here. And you have to kind of go in certain orders. Each set of colors kind of has its own theme to it. If you work up on your performer's track, it's going to unlock the theater and ludus gladiatorius. So you can work on your gladiators in your theater if you work on the performer track. But it sort of all kind of goes, you got to unlock stuff left to right here before you gain access to the stuff over here. And same with the priests. Work your way up the track to unlock more stuff over here having to do with gardens and temples and apparitores. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that unlocks this green stuff here. And then patricians unlocks your, scouting ability and stuff like that. So to take an action, you'll basically spend, like if I wanted to create a trader here, I would spend a yellow resource, or I'd have to have crossed off something that has that symbol on it. But I might spend this yellow resource, allows me to cross this off, and then having crossed that off, that got me a purple worker. So then this comes up here. And then maybe I wanted to take a purple worker and I wanted to go over here and work on my mining and foresting. So I'd spend that purple worker, cross this off. Well, that didn't do me much good. Maybe I'm going to take another purple worker and continue to work on my mining left to right. So this, boom, now that's going to increase my resource production for next year and the years after. And I'm going to get another resource to work with. And in that way, you're going to be spending your workers and resources and working your way up on these tracks to gain you benefits and more workers and more resources, and it's going to help you to move up on this track of renown and piety and valor and discipline. And at the end of the game, oh yeah, so to show you, quick little, at the end of the round, say I'd spent all these resources and now I get attacked. What I would do is you're going to have to flip over a certain number of cards. In the beginning, first round, you only flip over one, and you look to see where that attack's coming from. So right down the center. So if I have my center cohort built up, I'm going to be able to fend off that attack. And but if they attacked, maybe later on they do 2 attacks, so I better have built this up at least 2 times. And there's other things you can do over here to help protect yourself. But eventually you're going to be drawing a bunch of cards. Wow, these are all just coming down the center. Oh, here's one to the right. At the end of, say, the 6th round here, if you were playing on hard difficulty, you'd draw 12 cards. And so they'd be attacking from left, center, and right, all over very randomly. And if you fend it off pretty well, you're going to score points. If you don't, you're going to lose points. And at the end of the game, you're going to see how far you went up on each of these tracks. And then let's say I was, crossed everything off up to here, let's say, and then you go down here. Oh, I scored 14 points. I'd write 14 there. And then you do the same for this track and this track and this track. And then your path cards. So at the beginning of each round, again, you're going to put another card and tucked it up here. And so you will look at your path cards and you'll score your end game. And then you would write your number there for your path cards. Then you'd subtract your disdain. So if attacks just kept getting through your wall, you'd be losing points, and then you're going to total your score and see how you did compared to this little one-player, scoring goal. So you're not playing against an AI, you're just trying to hit a certain scoring goal, and there's 3 different levels that you can play and to see how you do within those scoring goals. So there's a lot of going on, but the premise is fairly simple. That is Hadrian's Wall. Setup and teardown of this game is easy peasy. It's just, you take out a block of sheets here and a block of sheets there, you slam them together, you do a little bit of shuffling with a couple decks, you grab a pencil, you get your resources out, and you're ready to go. And the reset for this game, from game to game, tear off top 2 sheets that you just gained, you shuffle up a couple things, everything's already in place. Less than a minute. I mean, seconds. 30 to 45 seconds to reset this game to play it again. Very quick. It takes up very small amount of table space, this game. So that's nice. Length of play, around 45 minutes once you really kind of get into it, I think. This is where I ended up at. So pretty beefy game for that short time frame, because there are a lot of decisions to make there and a lot of tracks to decide what you're going to go up on. And it depends too on what the cards that you draw in the order for your own personal, one's going to be your goal, one's going to be, your prospect card, what it's called. But it's there's plenty to think about. So you could take longer, you could take shorter in a game. But for me, around 45 minutes. The components, the value for the components, for me, 2/3 of this box is colorful paper. And the price tag on that was steep, in my opinion. The other components, cards and the little wooden bits and stuff, very nice, but very, very few. And yeah, and the weight and the mass of this game, or the volume, I should say, is, it's all in these 2 chunks of papers, these 2 stacks of mountains of paper that I feel like it was overpriced in my opinion, but whatever. It still looks nice. And the theme, it's you're trying to build up this wall to protect yourself from attacks, I guess, and so, but the theme doesn't really shine through in any way, shape, or form for me. But it looks nice, and I get it, and it makes sense. But not a thematic game. The rule book was pretty good. I didn't mind the rule book, and it really kind of had a flow to it that was not super intuitive for me. I've seen other rule books do a better job of sort of like explaining, sections, like when you do this, it unlocks this, which unlocks this, and then, and it was there, but it was kind of just thrown together in a string of that and not really sectioned out. But once I read there, but it's not a difficult game to grasp. The most complicated part is just starting each round. You flip off a card here, you grab your resources, you draw 2 cards, but then once you have your resources or your workers and resources, well, then you just take a bunch of actions until you run out of workers and resources, and then there's an attack, and then you do it all over again. So there's not much to really explain with the rules, except for each track, especially on the right side where you're using your citizens to kind of work in a certain one of the 5 areas. Kind of, I find myself having to go back to the rule book and figure out, how does this work? How does scouting work? How does the gladiator action work? And so, but it all worked out. It was pretty easy to figure out and find quickly, thumb through that rule book. The solo rules, there's nothing to them. It's already a multiplayer solo game. So there's no extra subset of rules to learn when you're playing solo. There's there's a smidge, like a paragraph on how to, at the end of the game, to make yourself play this game solo, and it's super easy. It's just the game, basically. So, multiplayer solo game. Mechanics are very straightforward and very easy to understand, and once you're just, I found myself, always looking, you kind of get these resources to begin with, and it never just looks like enough. It's like, I want to do all this stuff. But that's where the real fun of this game was for me in trying to develop strategy, was based on the cards and the goals you start putting out there. You start working on certain tracks to achieve a maximum endgame scoring for a certain goal card, and that's where you kind of got to know each section, and then you find as you really focus on a section, it sort of unlocks a lot of stuff as you work it, and so you really get into, you're spending a resource and you're getting a resource. You're spending a worker and getting a resource, spending a worker and getting a worker for a resource, or all this stuff allows you take an action, and it usually gives you stuff back in return, and a lot of times, or allows you to move up on another track, which gives you stuff. So cool little chain combos all over the place. Very fun to kind of get to know, and I like that. That's one of my things that I really enjoy about games, and so that was definitely there. And it always, at the beginning of any round, I always felt like at the end of the round, I was like, whoa, man, I achieved. Sometimes you feel like, wow, I really achieved something with just all these cool little chain combos. And because otherwise, if those weren't there, the game would take 20 minutes, it's you just fly right through. But those really spice up the game. And that's really where the game shines for me. And so the difficulty levels there, you got 1 to 3 difficulty levels to work within, and then you got that little scoring bar at the bottom, one of the last pages to sort of judge how you did. So you're not playing against an opponent. Some people don't, this game, I'm fine with that. And it just, I wouldn't have expected, it would have been weird and over complicated, I feel like, to try and play against an AI here. It was enough for me to just try and reach a good score. And they're pretty challenging too. I really didn't get much higher than in the mid-range there. And I tried it on easy, and then I never even tried on the hard difficulty to see where I scored with that, just only on the normal, kind of the middle difficulty. And gave plenty of challenge, and sets up so quickly, at the end of the game, you're like, okay, that's what I scored. Scoring's so easy too. I mean, it just takes seconds as you sort of just go, I got this much on this track, this much on this track, this much on this track, this one, okay, I got 2 points for that, 1 point for that, 1 point for that, no points for that, 2 points for that. You just kind of go down and boom, you got yourself a not a complicated endgame scoring. So replayability, that's where I think I'm going to have enough of this game for my taste in about 10 plus plays, 10 to 15 plays. It's which is fine. I mean, I feel like I kind of got my money out of a game to a great along those lines. But yeah, this is it might end up being a keeper because you only got so many sheets there, but it comes with so many sheets. Even after I've played 10 plus times, there's going to be a very thick stack of each of these for someone else to enjoy down the line. So this will probably get passed on or sold for me anyway. But I've definitely been enjoying my time with it. It's certainly a very cool game, and it's heavy enough and to kind of really, it fits a cool little niche for me in playing, and I've appreciated it. But that's about all I got to say about Hadrian's Wall. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below. But until next time, I'm boardgamerants. Thanks for watching, and I'm out.